South Africa is more or less as it is on that video. But we have just had experiments in changing from one education system to the other, then ditching another education method to the third one. So there's been quite a number of changes, and our education is in transition. And there are people who are not satisfied about the changes. Transition is about fine tuning. In general, education it's not optimum. It's done to create workers rather than to create thinkers. That's a worldwide problem.
Yeah. What are the changes that are going on in South Africa that you were saying?
Before, every group of people were given different education. So pitch people had an education for pitch people. Indians, they had education for Indians, Chinese for Chinese, Africans for Africans. It was like that when the government was under the Afrikaners. And in 1994, that system crashed. And there was a new education that was introduced, outcome-based education. And that's where children were taught focused on the outcomes. And it was too much administration for teachers, and they were not used to it. And the unions were against it. And it fell on its face also. So they introduced another system. I don't remember what they call the one that they do now. But it's only now that people are getting used to it. But people are uncomfortable because there are a lot of changes.
So in Iraq, usually before the war, we had a better education system since the government made the teachers and the students committed to the rules. But now, after we were liberalized and capitalism is taking over everything there, so now we have more problems. We have some private sector education, and they don't really care about teaching people something. They really only care about taking money, and they will give you certificate for whatever you will do. Maybe they will even trying to help you to pass the exam, just to give you the certificate to have like the maximum degrees for their college or their school. So whenever the private sector start taking over education everywhere, I'm sure it's going to be a bigger problem for the education system at all. So we are going down now in Iraq. Everything is going down, especially in the education system. It's very bad right now.
So people are just paying for degrees if they need one, kind of thing.
Of course, it's actually, I face this situation even here in Russia.
I have some friends that did that as well.
Yeah,
in Moscow.
Now I'm paying for learning Russian language, but actually, my teacher is not really care about teaching me something about Russian. She only spent the hours for 5 hours, and then I have to learn by myself. So I'm sure the self education, or what they call it in English, I don't know the term right now. I don't remember it anyway. So when I was learning English, I learned by myself actually, and it was much better than learning in some institute or some school, since they will just try to take money and to give you a certificate, and then they wouldn't care about anything else. So whenever money is interfacing. In the education, of course, it's going to be only marketing, nothing about education at all.
And I feel the current education system is okay. Like it's working, but of course, after I hear what you guys saying, of course, it has lots of problems, especially when there is like a race problem and like as Ammar said, also like a problem with money when it's how you say, like when people are working for money, not to educate, because also like the current education is not as bad as like it is in the videos and on the blogs, as they say, because like this current education system gave us like all the technology we have. It gave us like a Bill Gates and like a Mike. In the same time, it has, of course, it has its flaws. It is not perfect. Yeah, but in Syria, it's of course it's like anywhere else. It has its problems. I remember that teachers used to hit us, which which weren't fun, of course. Some people till now say, "Oh, like hitting kids is the best solution to make them learn stuff." Of course, it's not. But I have like a very mixed feelings about education, because it's not the only thing that like it controls your life. You know, big part, like I think more important than education is family as well. Like this Google founder. Sorry, I forgot his name. So why he went into technology is because of his parents. Like his father has a PhD in technology, and his mom, she's also like a professor in technology. And all his life, when he was growing up, like 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, he was always surrounded by technology, like magazines, IT magazines, and that's how he got into like search engines and like algorithms and learning and education, and that's how he created Google with his co-founder. Yeah, so there are lots of like bad stories in schools, but at the same time, if parents are fine at home and they setting the path right for the kid, I think it should be fine. But of course, like the example from South Africa is crazy. I mean, it's not like this in Syria. And at the same time, like the example from South Africa was the same, I think, in the US when they had this like a racism problem with the white people and black people. So that's also like these examples, like they are not accepted. You know, you should at least like be able to learn what you want to learn.
What Hassan is saying, I mean, for sure, school is not the only way you get educated. You know, we have to understand that everything in the environment affects a child and a person. You know, so whatever the parents of the child, however they educate them, is very, very important. So I think it's also very important for parents to also understand how our world works. You know, one thing I find it kind of mind-boggling is that in school, kids don't really learn about the environment. They don't really learn. I mean, they don't really want you to learn how everything works, you know, how, what is money? Where does money come from? You know, where do you get your clothes? Where's the origin of how this whole business works?
How things works, yeah. For me, if I can add, was when I was at school about education, I remember very much about high school. I was bullied like crazy. Oh my God, this stuff affected me for sure for the rest of my life. I was bullied really like all the time. I had like really tons of problems with friends and like I don't know, with other guys. I am a big guy, but I don't know. I wasn't like mentally strong enough to protect myself from bullying. So
what were you bullied for, if I may ask?
No, nothing. Just like they used to calling me names, you know, like a stupid guy, la la la, and they're like, okay, I'm the stupid guy, you know. Like there are like tons of types, not only hitting, but it was like really tons of bullying for me. Like I was bullied a lot in school. That's not connected with education, but this is very much connected to schools where we get it, you get it. So is it the same topic? I don't know. Is it like a connected?
Yeah. I think it's very connected. I think bullying, like the issues that kids face in school and in social situations in our childhoods are very connected to our education, because you can't separate the social environment from the experience of education. And so if in our education systems we included more courses and parts of education like bullying prevention or understanding or acceptance of other human beings or cultural awareness, or more education, quality education in language. Like I studied 5 years of German in high school, but I didn't, you know, I didn't like it at all. I didn't care about it because of the quality of the language education. So I think if we had more education, like classes and subjects surrounding emotional intelligence in schools all around the world, the social environment could be improved for kids.
I think what really needs to be addressed is communication. You know, they don't teach you how to communicate in school. They teach you how to love your own country. You know, so if you teach somebody to be a patriot, you're not teaching them how to communicate properly, because you're teaching them to believe that they're better than another person rather than to understand another person. In order to understand another person, you have to understand where that person is coming from. The reason that they think the way they do is because of where they were born, how they were raised, and all the influences that happen to them throughout their lives and continue to influence them. So it's a very simple way to think about things, I think, but few people do, I feel like.
It sounds as well. Parents' part obviously is very important. Like now, I have a child, and the best way to make sure he's doing like okay or fine in school is like to keep an eye on him at school, like to go to teachers' meetings, like to know the teachers, to like to check on him like from time to time at school, to ask him about classes. For example, in my family, we are like 8 kids. So that's like tons of kids for one family. And we had, of course, like one mom, and my father was working and making like
tons of kids.
Yeah, and my father was making like lots of money and stuff. I love my parents, and like until now we are in touch. I have no problems with them, nothing. It just all of it has like advantages and disadvantages. Like for example, I have a big family, which is like awesome when I'm visiting like Syria, or when I meet with my family, or when we are together. It's really amazing, and I can always like get tons of love and support from them. At the same time, I don't know. I don't think like a lot of them were focusing on my education. Let's say my father, he was always ready like to pay money for courses and like a private university, but I wasn't like smart enough to tell my father I want a private university. Like this is a true story. I finished high school and I had like bad marks, and my father told me, oh, like I will send you anywhere you want, just like choose a university and I will send you. I told him, no, I want to stay in Syria. I want to go like to get a diploma, and that's it. And now I regret this a lot, of course, let's say from time to time when I think about it. And it wasn't, and why I said my father I don't want a private university. It's because I wasn't well educated. I wasn't prepared, let's say. Like maybe my parents, they didn't spend like much time with me, like preparing me, telling me like, oh, there are these options, there are these options, which all of it like give me good lessons to keep an eye on my son, let's say. I like my kids in the future.
How old is your son, if I may ask?
He's 4. And also I wanted to say one more thing about like education, that it's not that bad.
You know,
but like we can look at ourselves, you know, because I think each one of us think that, oh, we are like very smart. We are on this like online video chat, and we are using phones and like internet.
Very much.
So we all of us like get somehow educated, and we can't like just deny our schools and the education system and what it gave to us. We got something, and we were lucky to improve ourselves. Yeah, and this in general, this conversation, of course, like it gives awareness to people as well.
Well,
Oh, I think I have a bad connection. I think
I was in Syria.
Mm-hmm.
If I will compare Syrian education system with Iraqi education system after war, Syrian education system is much better, and I can tell why. Because we still remember Jacques Fresco when he said money is the main reason for corruption. If there is no money, there is no corruption. So I remember in Syria, since it was all free, until high school, or maybe even if you have like a high degree in high school, you will go for free to the university. So whenever education is free, there will be no motive to the university or to the school to just push you up with a certificate. They will try to teach you like a real teaching. But whenever there will be money, they will have something like they will be committed to just push you out because you already paid money. They need to make you succeed. So this is the only one way to have like a good marketing for themselves, that they are a good university and people are succeed here. They are taking high degrees. So that's why money is the main reason for corruption. So whenever we have monetary system, we wouldn't ever have a real and good education system. So I think, well, what is we are doing now in learning resource-based economy. So since we are doing it like we are all volunteers, and we have many organizations working on resource-based economy, part of it Venus project, part of it TROM or whatever. It's still like a good efforts to maybe mix it together to arrive and to achieve the big goal, which is to teach people about resource-based economy and to teach them that this education system is so bad. So yeah, we will. I mean, I don't want to say I don't want to swear since we are live, you know. So, I mean, this is the best way for us now to learn something like in real education. I don't think we have another tool, but this internet, or maybe sometimes when we have meetings like face to face, just like before 2 months, maybe it was so nice to have some meetings and everything. So it's all about the monetary system. It's all about the money. Whenever we will get rid of this monetary system, we will have a good education system.
I mean, there's still some hope even in the monetary system to bring a better education. For example, in Finland, I don't know if do you guys know much about the Finnish educational system?
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Their teachers are paid very well. They're very well respected. Their classrooms are run a lot differently. This is from, I haven't been to Finland, but this is from what I've read and seen. Their schools are more like a kids club where kids come and they interact with each other. They have a very, very low dropout rate. Sorry, I was just reading the comment. And they rank among the top 3 in the world ever since they started having such an educational system. So I recommend for everybody to watch some documentaries or videos or read some articles on the Finnish system. See how it can be different. And actually, even in Moscow, they're starting to take a stance against. See, one problem with education is that with the educational system that you see in as a general around the world is it bores the hell out of children. You know, children are forced to sit down and, you know, memorize facts. They're usually not taught how to think scientifically, how to use critical thinking, how to, like I said, how to communicate properly. This is a massive, massive issue in our world, and that I think that spans across the globe.
And can I just add something
yeah.
here? Like, you have to have certificates to get to any job. You have to have an interview to get a job. And to be a parent, which is like the most important job of your lifetime and the most money consuming one as well, you have no lessons at all.
Yeah, and the ones with the least lessons seem to have the most children, I think.
Yeah.
No, to your parents, Hassan.
No, it is about money. You know, my father had no money, so he was he had a good business. I don't know.
But what I was saying, though, that even in Moscow, they're starting to turn things around, where there's, for example, a group of parents that were fed up with the current educational system, and they started something called anti-school. Have you heard of it, Hassan?
No.
Maybe you'll be interested in it. You can visit them. I think they opened this year, and hopefully they'll get a bit bigger and bigger. And they basically are trying to do something more like the Finnish do, where they interact, where the children interact with each other a lot more, where they have different methods of teaching. And one interesting thing, I don't know, have you guys taken language courses, private school language courses?
I was a teacher for a while, so this is my son. So and I took some. I took some classes as well. Yeah.
Because one thing I noticed, so in school I learned Spanish. It was boring as hell. It was just not fun. But then I took and then university as well. But I once went to Spain, to Granada, to just take some private courses with in a school for a few weeks, and it was really, really fun. It was interactive, and I noticed that the methods of teaching were completely different. And later I took an English teaching course in university where they taught me these methods as well, which were completely different from anything I had experienced in school. So I feel like this kind of system can be applied to many, many different subjects, not just language teaching, but I feel like you can see these methods very clearly in these kind of schools. I don't know if anyone else has experienced that.
So I have a follow-up question for this, for the same a topic. So can we get rid of boring topics in school? Is it possible, like a math, for example, which is a very difficult for students, or like a nationalism? Of course, we can get rid of. We have nationalism subject in Syria, which is a crazy hard, crazy boring, and I don't know. I always fail this subject. But can we get rid of history, geography, all this a philosophy, all these boring topics? Can we get rid of them? You think? I mean, is it possible? And math as well, which is also very useful. For example, math is very useful to learn.
I would say that those subjects actually give you the width of thinking capabilities. It actually broaden up your mind to the to the other extension, to the other. I don't know. You know what I mean, or not really?
Yeah, it's like exercises. Yeah, maybe I can agree with you about this, because sometimes we need to read or learn mathematics to give us some exercises to our brain, so we can understand another topics. But for nationalism, that made me remember in Saddam Hussein era, when I was in the elementary school, and
you had nationalism subject too.
Yeah, it's
of course, yeah.
Where were you growing up? In Moscow?
No, in Iraq. We are brothers in blood, we are neighbors. Iraq, Syria, Jordan, Egypt, all of them.
No, for me, I don't live in Moscow. I live in South Ural. Yeah, But anyway, we were talking about nationalism. Yeah, so I guess nationalism is so silly. Of course, we should get rid of it. It's not exercise at all.
And I
think that they should add. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I say I don't think there are bad subjects as such. For instance, mathematics. It doesn't bore me. It's the most exciting for me. And it's because I know how I can use it. I see it all around me. In fact, that's the only subject that I never used to study at school, but I would pass it and other students would come and ask me to help them. So different children are interested in different stuff. And if people do what they love, it would help, rather than people being forced to do things because they say this is what you'll need in life.
Yeah, and also I think it's not necessarily that we have to just get rid of a bunch of subjects. It's the methods of teaching that can be changed.
Exactly.
So I don't think Finland, got rid of mathematics. For sure, they teach mathematics, and actually, they rate the highest on like international test scores, which means they're studying these subjects, but in different methods. And one link that I posted before was about the Khan Academy. Have you guys heard of it before?
No,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah,
Anyway.
it's pretty awesome. So
It's amazing.
yeah. Somebody else want to describe it? Since I'm talking.
I use it for my children and I use it for myself also, because now I'm 53, and the last time I was sitting in classes was when in my 30s, 20s. So just to keep my knowledge fresh, I go through Khan Academy, and it sort of refreshes your knowledge about these theories. And what I like about it is how it builds into other things that you do, that you learn now. I'm in the computer industry, and logic is essential. And Khan Academy has mathematics, and it has computer studies also, and it is linked. You can see one feeding the other.
So this is online university, right? The Khan Academy, I think. Yeah. So they have tons of courses, correct?
Yeah, I don't think it's the universities.
Yeah.
It's not
Hi, guys.
an MOOC. They don't give you certificate as such.
All right. They just have courses, or like they have courses and subjects, and you can like listen or like take part of them. They have sometimes some assignments, right?
Yeah, one very important aspect to it, as far as I understand, is that basically they've managed to flip the classroom. So it's this guy who started making YouTube videos to teach his cousins in India how to do, I don't remember, so he tutored them on a few different subjects. And he put these videos on YouTube for anybody to watch, and all of a sudden they got really popular. So because of that, he ended up making the Khan Academy, which is an online educational platform.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is the one I'm talking about. Yeah.
So they use it in some classrooms now, I think in LA and a few other places. But I think one really important aspect, as far as I understand, is that they've flipped the classroom. So the student learns at home at his own pace. So he does some exercises to understand, for example, how to do a particular math problem, or how to understand chemistry, or whatever they're studying. And then in the classroom, kids interact with each other, and they help each other. They help each other do the exercises, kind of like homework. So basically, they learn at their own speed at home, and then they go and practice the subjects together in school, which is awesome because the teacher can keep track of which student is having trouble with which problem, for example. They can monitor and see which students got these problems really fast, and then the better student can help the other student, and which leads to better collaboration. Collaboration is also very important.
Interesting.
So
So I was, yeah. So when I was, no, thank you for the explanation. So when I was talking about this like a boring subject, like I was giving an example of like a history, geography, philosophy, and math. I read somewhere that like a math is like the most important subject at school because math like prepares you for algorithm. It prepares you like for like a subject thinking, objective thinking. It prepares. It is like a you use it in daily life, of course. So I also like math. I enjoy. But like, what about like history? Do we have any fan histories that like we should get more history at schools, or like a geography, or yeah, or like a philosophy? Philosophy is important, of course. But like a history, do we need to study all this history at school, or maybe, or like the history of, I don't know, 5,000 years ago, and like and World War I and II, and like national history and the area's history and stuff like that. And it's
If they are
different from
not
one country
lying,
to the other.
if they are not lying, then it's fine. But history is lying.
how do you know
Yeah,
if they're
it's
lying or
important.
not? The winner always writes the book, right?
They lie through their teeth.
How do we deal with like a boring subject? How do I convince my son that, oh, this history book of like a 200 useless pages is very important for you? You have to read it and memorize all of it. How do I do that? Like, if I don't like history, how can I teach my son history?
I think it's to find what he really wants to do rather than history. And yeah, homeschooling is expensive. If you are doing homeschooling, it would be easy for you to choose the subjects.
Uh-huh.
But it's expensive because you have to be there for the child. And if you are home, it's missed opportunities because you have to be working also.
Yeah, you're right. So there is no way around it, right? If you are going to school and there are these subjects, you have to study them basically. You have just to tell him like to suck it and keep moving forward. Like I did it, his mom did it, people around him doing it. So
No.
just like no, I'm open to suggestions. So what do you guys suggest?
I don't hear anything.
I have a suggestion
I just lost the connection.
that has to do with the school that you were describing in Moscow, the anti-school. Yeah, they have like this idea, this thought of unschooling or anti-schooling is a global movement at this point. And there's schools popping up everywhere, especially in online communities, like platforms where that local parents are starting groups where parents can share information and groups between their kids. So it doesn't have to be like homeschooling where you have your kid at home all the time and so you can't work and you have to be the teacher. It's kind of creating environments where kids can, like in the video, the video that we watched today, like kids are learning themselves and they're given the resources and what they're developing when they talk with each other and they discover together is they're fostering their curiosity. And so in that way, they find out what they're really interested in and what makes them excited in learning. So I think maybe a key or a suggestion about making education more exciting for kids is to foster their curiosity more and to give them the choice more to learn what they want to learn and read what they want to read instead of saying like, I am the teacher and you are the student.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because we heard of that person who was not that good at school and they thought that she's a slow learner, and they discovered that she's a dancer in one of the videos.
Yeah.
There were many videos. I think we watched 4 videos. But in one of the videos, there's a person who was not good at school. But as a dancer, she became a high earner. Did you see it?
Yeah, that was
No.
the Ken Robinson on creativity, on how schools kill creativity.
Yes.
Yeah. The girl was just not paying attention. You know, nowadays they would tell her that she has ADD and give her some pills and calm her down like that. But this was, do you remember what year, Bolo?
No, the details, I usually
Before
don't get
ADD
into
was,
nitty-gritty. I've got the story in my mind. I will watch the videos again. And yeah.
But basically, before ADHD was like a thing, you know. So a mother asked for a psychiatrist, I think, for help with the child because she couldn't pay attention to anything, and the psychiatrist was, you know, figured out that she just wanted to move around, and he turned on the radio and she started dancing straight away. So he told the mom, why don't you just send her to dance school? And she did, and she became a world famous dancer, and now she's
famous.
Now she's famous. Now she dances.
Yeah. No. Thank you very much. This idea about Khan Academy, by the way, it is useful because now I'm getting some things about education, like for myself as well. Because like any other person, I have like a free time on my hands, and I don't want to like waste it, of course. So maybe I can check some courses even for myself. I have a question, by the way, like something very important about school. I don't know. Maybe we are not. They don't teach it that good. Is like how to find a job, how to make money. Because why do we go to education? Why we choose this subject instead of this subject, and like this university instead of this university? Because it will help you in the market to make money and to find a job. So what about this subject? Shouldn't be part of like a schools or education, like how to survive, like how to find a job? What do you guys think? Is it important? Is it not important?
Now they should teach how to create jobs. If we are talking about this monetary system, because if they teach you how to find a job and there are no jobs, what do they expect you to get? Where do they expect you to get it? You see. But yeah, in an RBE, it's a totally different ideology. What you learn.
Hassan, do you know what an RBE is?
No.
A resource-based economy.
Oh yeah. Okay.
An economy that's not based on money, which is basically only exists because of our imagination. I don't remember. Did we talk about that last time? No.
No. I checked it. I watched the video, but no. Please continue. So in RBE.
Basically, the idea is that first we have to know what resources we actually have on the planet, and then make an economy out of that. That's very, very simple terms, but that's what the project, The Reality of Me, TROM, that's one of the kind of proposed solutions that we could have to the current economical system. As well as the Venus Project as well. So the Venus Project idea is to propose a resource-based economy. So
in RBE, like they focus on creating jobs, or
not jobs. So basically, the idea is this, right? If you have, say you have an island, right? This is an island. You have 10,000 people that you want to live on this island. What do you have to do? What do you guys think you have to do in order for these 10,000 people to be able to live on this island sustainably and not kill each other or finish off all the resources on the planet?
On the island.
Yeah, what do you need to do? What do you need to do?
Well, you need to educate them, right? That's what we are talking about today.
About what, though? What do you have to educate them about?
No, you need to have a plan. You need to have a system. You need to You need to make them watch The Martian, you know, this like Matt Damon movie to show them how to survive and
Well, I mean, what do they actually need to survive with?
resources, right? Like they need system not to kill each other, like
Food and water, right? So
yeah,
food,
yeah, you're
water,
right.
you have to keep warm, right? So basically, first we have to take a survey of what resources we actually have on the island, how much water, how much food, all of this, and then use the technology that we have so that those 10,000 people can live on the island for forever or for a long time. You know, it doesn't make any sense if you take this island and then you divide all the people into little tribes where they fight over all the resources. You know, that that doesn't make any sense. And then create a system where money runs everything, but money is not represented by anything, so that you basically have a system where these people are divided into tribes and fighting over the resources with something that doesn't represent the resources. So you basically have a system of consuming an infinite amount of resources. That's what we're dealing with today, and then fighting over them. So a resource-based economy, yeah.
I say it is necessary to divide them into tribes if I want to rule over them only.
Yeah.
Because it makes them weaker to me.
Yeah.
But that's an evil intention.
Yeah, and you educate them to just love their own nation, and you don't educate them about communication, and you don't educate them about how the world actually works, where money comes from, where the resources come from, how they get from where they started to being produced to your pocket, and why you have to, you know, work whatever job you might hate, may or may not hate, in order to get the resources. So, yeah.
Interesting stuff. Interesting stuff.
I'm sorry, but I cut somebody off when I asked if Hassan knew.
Yeah, yeah. My question was about.
I was done.
Ah, all right. You mean like in RBE there is it includes like a system to create jobs, which is takes care of education, and at the same time like helps people like survive and make money. Let's say.
Yeah, jobs are not necessary there.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have bosses, you don't have workers. Today it's Workers' Day here in South Africa and in other countries. I know people are celebrating being workers. It's not something that is worth celebrating. We should celebrate making the world a better place, not working, not earning a living. We lost the plot.
Yeah, the thing is that a lot of jobs can actually be automated. There's so much that technology can do. So the idea is actually to automate as many jobs as possible so that people don't have to do these jobs. So many jobs can be replaced. So the idea is to create a world where we actually use technology to its fullest potential and the resources that we have on the planet to create a saner world for everybody that's actually based on using science to come up with solutions to problems. You know,
Come on!
That's what we should tell the children.
But it is not like this. It's all nice stuff what you're saying, but it's you know, like in Finland they have like the greatest education, but I think it is one of the highest countries with the rate of suicide. So so
Yeah, but come
education.
on, they have like half of a year of a darkness.
Oh.
It's like you can't
The
compare
sun is
that.
important.
They don't have a sun. Like, come on.
Yeah, and I don't know. It is a complicated topic because when you give people everything, they have, and you ask them to do nothing, they have free time. And when you have tons of free time, like if you are not a smart person or something, you will just like go crazy, get bored, or like which is back to education. Which is back to education, for example.
Even if you think you're pretty smart, you get pretty bored. Like you get so lazy so quickly.
Yeah, like
It's
I'm
not about
smart.
the education system. It's just like
Yeah. Oh, so this is like I have a like a good connection to education. What about like physical education, like sport? Because now I feel like
I agree. Like there should be so much more of a body control in schools.
yeah.
But it's
Yeah, but
not.
Hassan,
They only have these tests like once a year, and then they rate you somewhere, and then they tell you, oh, you're not capable of doing it anyway. So why bother?
Oh, yes. Bully Lang, right? Like you were talking to me. Sorry.
I'm trying to imagine somebody brought to the level of committing suicide. Is it possible?
Like you are so bored, like you kill yourself.
Yeah.
What?
No, not
It
out
must
of
be
a
another
boredom,
reason.
hopefully.
It must be another reason.
Yeah. I'm not an expert on suicide, so I don't know.
I looked
I
at
know.
Finland's suicide rate. It's not on the top. It's actually been dramatically falling.
You mean Finland?
Yeah.
Okay.
Although,
No, that's good.
yeah.
So also like in Syria, for example, I remember we used to have like this like a physical trainings, like I don't know what, like a few times a week, which you could have skipped easily. But like now, for example, for me, for my like a mental health, like a sport is very nice. Now, whenever I have stress or like tired or busy, yeah, I go play sport, and always like the result is very nice. And that's also what we do for my son. Like when he's bored or something, we just take him out, and it is good. It's refreshing. So in Syria, at school, we had like during the education, we have even like a shooting test. So we used to go outside the city, and they would give us like guns, and we had to shoot at marks or like targets, and then you get marks and stuff. I didn't do it. It was also easy to skip, but I don't know also if this stuff is good or not.
I would like to go and do it.
Like, and we were 15, I think. We were 15 or 16. Like tiny soldiers. I don't know.
I think that's a little bit. Yeah, I can't say that that's a good thing to prepare kids to shoot. You have to ask why.
Yeah.
But come on, did you ever go and play paintball when you were younger?
Paintball.
Oh
yeah.
I hate paintball. I hate it.
I love it.
But it's a little different when it's a real gun that can kill somebody.
No, but I think it's painful.
Oh, no.
It leaves you with a bruise.
Yeah, you are right. Yeah, you get a bruise, yeah, from a paintball. Yeah. But if you are on the winning side, it is fun. If you play on my team, you will have some fun. Yeah, like I'm not normally a winner, so that should be fun. Yeah. So
it only takes one ball to get you on the cheek or somewhere.
Yeah. So can I ask a question about BOE, right? Like RBE, resource-based economy. So is people were saying online like it is like communist? It's not, or is it, or it has some common ground with communist, or?
I'll send you a book to read.
All right.
The last time. But I mean, one massive aspect, right, is like I said, to actually make a global civilization where you actually use all the resources that exist and create an economy from the resources that actually exist. Communism never did this. Communism used money.
All right.
And they made people work incredibly boring jobs that everybody hated. Where here the idea is to automate as much as possible so that you don't have to do these boring jobs.
All right, thank you. Yeah, like that was clear. So I also have to go. Thank you very much, guys. See you next week.
It was nice to talk to you, Hassan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
How about Aaron, can you tell us anything about what education is like in Germany?
Well, when I went to school, it was, I think, like a normal school. So the teacher was standing in front of the class, and yeah, we had to listen for 45 minutes. So yeah, pretty pretty normal. But I noticed that in Germany there are some alternative schools. They are called Waldorf school. Maybe you've heard of them. And also another kind of school, and they are called Free Democratic School. And this is kind of the thing what Julia said. So I think there is a movement going on which is challenging the current education system. And yeah, it's basically working that children have much more free time in exploring, in doing what they want, in learning what they want, and they are not forced to learn anything. So
Wow.
they are much more free, and yeah, and that's really cool. And for example, there's in Berlin is a school of that, but I haven't visited yet, but I want to go there, and yeah, that makes me happy. But still, in my area, there is none of these developments, not at all. So I think, yeah, it takes time, of course. It's a process of changing.
Yeah, I think also so there are these alternative schools coming about, like we're talking about, but one massive issue that I've seen, for example, that I noticed in the ANSI school in Moscow. I went to their first meeting when they opened up, and I asked them if they teach anything about global problems and the world, and they just gave me this blank stare because they don't know anything about global problems in the world. You know, it's like everyone lives in their own little tunnel. Yeah, and it's a massive problem, you know.
I know what you want, what you mean.
Yeah, and for example, even there are some universities, for example, that are starting to understand that we need to study how the international and global world works. For example, I went to University of Sydney, and I accidentally actually got into the International and Global Studies degree, and it was brand new at the time. I was in the second group of people that had ever graduated with it. But basically, we studied global problems. We studied environmental issues across the globe. We studied international business, international politics, and how we have these massive issues, you know. But the problem was that there were no solutions offered, really. We studied all sorts of really horrible global issues that made me completely depressed. And we studied what in different institutions are trying to do to solve these problems. So, you know, for example, how, you know, I wrote one essay about like rape used as a weapon of war in Darfur. And I studied about how UN Women tried to deal with this issue and how Amnesty International tried to deal with this issue, you know, a government organization versus a non-government. So they use different approaches, a top-down approach and a bottom-up approach. And neither one could get even close to solving the issue because they didn't understand the core problem. You know, and the core problem in that particular issue is it goes down, you know, that the core problem, goes down to the entire system, but it also goes down to culture, and it's very deep. So it's not something you know, it's easily approached. But towards the end of the degree, I remember even having like a big lecture about how the entire system is the problem. And at that point, I had like just heard of Jacques Fresco. And I remember like, you know, asking a group of 200 people if they had ever heard of the Venus Project or Jacques Fresco. And there was like 1 or 2 people that raised their hands. And even the lecturer had never heard of it. And this is the lecturer that was giving, you know, a group of 200 students a lecture about the fact that the whole system is the problem in university, which is surprising that they even did that. But so people don't even know that there are these there is a real solution, because I remember throughout all of university, before I had heard of Jack or RBA or any of this, I was like, there's got to be a different way. Like, there's got to be something else we can do. Like, come on, like, this can't be it. This is not working. This is not working. None of this is working. Like, they want to, you know, they want to deal with the problem of poverty by developing nations the same way that they're developed now. It's not gonna work. You know?
Yeah, I totally understand that. With me, so I was wondering my whole life, why are there so many problems and what's the root cause of it and what can we do? So I was basically, yeah, searching for something like the Venus Project or TROM, and I think somehow, yeah, it was through the internet that I watched. I think it was Zeitgeist, and then I came kind of into that. So, and I think, yeah, we just, yeah, need to bring these ideas out. We need to promote that and make videos and documentaries as Theo does, and yeah, write books and yeah, get this message out there, because I think many people are, what?
Go.
I think also people are like, they know there are problems and they study politics. I've met some people like that, and they think, yeah, the politicians have to do something about that. And yeah, I think about how can I approach them? So how can I say, hey, this is not working. There is something else you need to check out. But it's not easy, because every person, every human is different. And yeah, so I struggle with talking with people. I think there are some people who already know that something is not working or is going wrong completely, and with these people I can talk more easily about that. But some people are just in the wrong direction, and I would need a lot of time with them. So
Yeah, but we don't concentrate on people who don't have a pain.
yeah.
We concentrate on those who already understand that there's a pain, and they are looking for a solution.
That's why education is so important, because
Exactly,
when they're too old, it's already too late for so many people to understand or care about anything, you know, so long as they're comfortable enough where they are. So that's why if you at least get kids while they're still young to understand that there are massive problems in the world, that we cannot continue to live like this, that's the only way you can make a real change, I think.
Yeah, and that's why I translate.
Yeah, you're awesome there.
Every day. I want to translate all of the materials of TROM until the end of the year, and then
What are you translating it into?
TROM books and videos into German.
Yeah, no, but into German.
What?
Auf Deutsch.
Auf Deutsch, yeah.
Okay.
For me, I feel like the most important thing, like we were talking about with Aaron, is to just try to reach as many people as possible. You know, to actually try to influence education. So we should actually be writing to people like Ken Robinson, you know, like Salman Khan, you know, these people, to try to actually integrate some kind of educational platform for a resource-based economy into educational platforms that already exist, that actually have a name, to people that can influence other people, you know, because I feel like it's not enough people have heard of these ideas, you know.
I think another big problem is that people are actually invested in their suffering. They're identified with their problems.
And they love them.
When you give something that's going to take that away, it feels to them like you're challenging a part of themselves that they think is actually them. And so they will actually defend their problems and their suffering.
Yeah.
So what is an ego to you? Is that like the accumulation of all the crap that you've layered upon yourself through all your experiences of life?
Yeah. So like
That's a good description.
Yeah. Yeah, it's basically your the fictional identity that that you believe yourself to be. So, you know, exactly like your past, people identify with their past, people identify with their suffering, people identify with their nationality, people identify with their organism, with their body.
So you
Basically,
say that
it's all identification with form.
yeah. So would you say the younger a person is, the less ego they have? Because of less layers of shit?
Yeah. Yeah. That's why actually, funny you should say that, because that's actually true on one hand, because the older you get, the more experience you accumulate and the more the ego consolidates. But a child is actually also quite narcissistic, so quite egotistical, because they find it more difficult to grasp other people, that other people have a separate reality to them. So in one sense,
so communication
they are
is
very much
essential
less.
then. Yep, sorry.
What did you say?
I was just saying, so then that's another, you can say that's another reason that it's very, very important to teach kids how to communicate properly, which means to teach them to understand where other people are coming from and why.
Yeah. Yeah, instead of telling them, oh, like you're so-and-so and you're my child and you're from Australia and Australia is the best country in the world and blah, blah, blah. And then just like indoctrinating that child into that culture. Then, yeah, you say like, look, this is where the piece of land that you exited the vagina, and you're living in this culture, but there's actually 7 billion other people that all have a different reality, and that every single person has a different perception of that reality. And so that's actually another way to dissolve the ego, is like what we would kind of put us on this discussion, is traveling and education. I guess education would be a good way to dissolve the ego, because the more you know, the more you realize that you actually don't know shit. And the more you travel, the more you realize that everyone has a different perception and everyone is equally convinced of their own reality. So you need to step. It's kind of like a way of stepping out of your own ego, being immersed in a different culture.
Getting out of the tunnel.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I was traveling too, and that kind of helped me a lot. But when I see the young people who have the same age like me, and they are studying or they are doing an apprenticeship or something, they are kind of in this hamster wheel, and they can't think out of that, or they are trapped more or less in the system, and what to do with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of, you know, and so many people feel trapped and they hate it, you know, and they're trying to dig out. They don't see another way out. You know, that's why I started my blog. I was trying to get people to understand that actually it's not the money. It's really not the money that stops you from traveling. It's all of these ideas that people layer you with. You know, it's your mentality. And people find it so hard to understand, huh?
And it's fear.
Fear, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you're taught to live this particular way your whole life. It's what everybody tells you is right or is the only way, you know? And
what I try.
No, go on.
Continue.
No, I was just gonna say it doesn't have to be that way, you know. You can get a different perspective. What were you gonna say?
I was going to say I joined some youth panels about sustainability, So one is around is in whole Germany, and another one is a smaller group, and we are kind of 20 people, and yeah, it's about sustainability. So, and for real sustainability, we need to change the system. I think, yeah, you know why. And I try to show them the book, so The Money Game and Beyond, and some people, so some read it already, and some are reading it right now. And I think, yeah, I mean, when people, the more people know about that, the more they can talk with other people and spread the idea. And I kind of try to, continue or bring the movement forward. And I've also met a guy from Berlin, and he wrote another book. So it's called like New Ways in a Free World. And he wrote it himself, so it's not from TROM or so, but it's the ideas are in that book. And that kind of gave me really hope that more and more people are getting the idea in Germany too, because in Germany I haven't met many people who think like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think also the idea that I got the other night when I had this meeting about education in our coffee shop, we had I don't know if you guys wrote what I read what I wrote before, but we had one guy from Uzbekistan, one guy from Nigeria, and one guy from Tajikistan. So very poor countries, you know. And the one Tajiki guy was explaining how, you know, how fucked up everything was in Tajikistan, and there's so it's just your life can be really shit if you end up, like Chris said, coming out of the vagina of the woman and that lives in a poor village. It's not your fault, you know. You grow up in a particular way. That's all you have is the education that's you know, given to you, which you might not finish, and then you end up just being in a shithole, just not having many options for your future, you know. And I explained how it was the whole system, and that there are other alternatives, and these guys all like nodded in agreement. So I think you know, hopefully they'll read some of this stuff later, but you know, I think that some of the the poorest countries where people understand that the whole system is really shit, and they're the ones that really need to be targeted as well, so that people understand that there actually is another alternative, you know, apart from the shit options that you have now, you know. So I don't know.
I have a question. Do you think more and more people have to kind of get independent of the system, so produce their own energy, or they produce food locally? And with the open source movement, they have 3D printers. So if more and more people get kind of out of that system, that, I mean, yeah, that will change a lot, or?
Yeah. I mean, before I joined the Venus Project, which was only it was like less than a year ago, I was thinking, you know, for me it was like two options that I really wanted to dig into, which was, one was the Venus Project, the other one was the Earth ships. You know, do you know them? Yeah. Because yeah, and then that's just putting yourself off the grid, and yeah, allowing it to come from bottom up approach. But I think I don't know, I feel like it needs to work from both sides in order for anything for it to work, you know. It's like anything, like just fucking anything to get us out of this insanity, you know. But I think with something like setting up communities, right, and being self-sustainable, I think that is definitely good to give yourself options, to give yourself more free time, and to educate yourself. I think really that education has to be at the core of making a change in our world, because if we don't create people with saner values, with people that understand that we actually need the earth. We're all just one people. We depend on the resources on this planet. We can't live without this. And it seems like such a fucking simple concept. You know, like, how can you not get this? You know, so
Yeah,
but
we need that education movement. Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, it has to come up from the top down as well, though, because that's how to influence the masses. I don't know. I really don't know, because, you know, the guys, like some of the guys in the Russian-speaking Venus Project team, they really think that, like, you know, the UN has to be involved. And I was like, you know what the UN is? It's trying to keep things the way they are and patch things up a little bit. They're not trying to get rid of the whole system. They're not even allowed to say that the whole system is the problem. They wouldn't, you know. And then they're like, yeah, not the way the UN is now, but they should. I don't know.
It needs to be the right kind of education. Or yeah. There's plenty of people that are very, very highly educated, very, like, way more intelligent than average, who are extremely capitalistic. So, you know, I think that's still, yeah, like they have much more education than probably most of us do. Like, I don't know what everyone's education here is, but like people who are pretty much geniuses, but still think that capitalism is the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Hitler was a smart guy too. You know. Sorry, Aaron, what were you gonna say?
I think
yeah, that's right.
When we talk, oh, sorry.
Oh, you go.
I think when we talk about education, we mean education that changes the current system. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I've heard
education.
people also talk about education that changes the current system, but still believe in capitalism. Like Jordan Peterson, for example. Has anyone here heard of Jordan Peterson? No. He's actually quite famous. He became most well known recently because they tried to pass a law in Canada which forced people to use people's transgender pronouns, and so it would have been, if they had passed that law, it would have been illegal to refuse to use their pronouns, of which there are like 50 or something, like even more. And he refused to do that. And he actually got away with it as well. And so like he's like, he would be quite famous for like speaking out against like speaking about free speech and against this social justice warrior bullshit that's going on, and all that kind of stuff. And I've watched a lot of his lectures, and all of his stuff is on YouTube. And so much of it is like fucking spot on. Like, and then, but then you hear him talk about capitalism, and I'm just like, oh man, like how is this possible? And he said something like about you can't be against capitalism while being on your iPhone. And I was like, that's poor. Like, that's such a fucking a poor statement.
Yeah.
Because it's basically just saying that the only reason that technology, I mean, what it boils down to seems to me that the only reason technology advances is because of capitalism. As if we didn't have money, that it would just come to a standstill, which is obviously not the case.
You know, there's a guy in my discussion club here that comes like every week, who's always arguing that, like, oh yeah, but if it wasn't for capitalism and the current system, then we wouldn't have all the stuff that we have today. And the stuff is, you know, our lives are definitely way better than they were 100 years ago. But the argument that I would put here, though, is that it doesn't really matter. You know, even if it was like an alien that came from outer space and gave us everything that we have now, we didn't do it. It was the alien. And all of a sudden, it was great then. You know, we have everything we have because of him, the alien. But now we understand that this alien is trying to kill us. Shouldn't we do something to turn around and not support this alien anymore?
Mm.
You know, so it doesn't really matter to me what it was that brought us to where we are today.
Yeah, I actually agree. I mean, I have no idea if without capitalism we would have had this technology today, but it really doesn't matter to me either. Today we can definitely do way better.
Yeah. But that's also just indoctrination, isn't it? If you're brought up in a capitalistic society and you get told, he's basically just been told that capitalism is the way, and he's finding it hard to get around that. It's very much ingrained into his ego.
Yeah, I have a question, guys. When you're trying, I think that's to reach RB if we ever succeed, which I hope, but would be really hard. We definitely have to focus on education with the younger generations, but still we are in our everyday life always meeting people that struggle to grasp the concept, or I mean, whatever. We always try, I think we often try to convince new people. Do you think, I heard that before and I'm always wondering about it, if we should stick on trying to just through facts and science, or try to do something more like Fresco was doing, actually trying to convince them in their own way, trying to make them believe it by what they can understand, even if at the end they don't grab the concept, and maybe focus on trying to explain them the concept later on.
Yeah, people aren't really convinced by facts.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But should you try not to convince people that are not convinced by facts, or just give up on them? Try to convince them in another way, or just try to do something to convince someone else to be sure you're not going against science, which might be somehow destructive as well. I'm just wondering which way would be the best. Like, I don't think there is a perfect answer to that. It's just, I would like to know what you think about it, if it makes sense.
I think it's like you said, I've heard, I know exactly what you mean with Fresco when he says that you need to be able to find a way to explain something to people that they come up with the conclusion themselves, instead of like trying to convince them that they're wrong, basically.
Whatever, if he did that with the Ku Klux Klan or not, I have no idea, and it doesn't matter. He's just giving this example to make us understand the thing. That trying to make the guy understand that with the balloon there are things going up and that's why the earth is round or whatever. That's not a explanation, but it's convincing the guy. Is it what should matter for us, or should we try to do better than that?
I think the only way we can try to do better is to reach kids.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, I think
some people you just have to give up. You know, I would never be able to convince my grandma about anything. You know, there's no point. There's absolutely no point to it. You know.
Yeah. No, but
I wouldn't waste my time trying, huh?
Young, I mean, people in their 20s, or which are already, that still have a lot of time to work towards it, but are already a lot of things ingrained in their mind, which make it really hard to teach them.
Yeah, some people, I don't know, some people you just have to give up, I feel like.
I'm not expecting a professor. I was just trying to have your opinion about, is it better to try to convince them in another way, or should we just stick on trying to, it's not about throwing facts, but trying to really stay very scientist, even in our first touch with people.
I think experience is the best way to, like, because that's the only thing that you can really know is your own experience, and that's how you
really know.
You can only really, the only thing that you ever will experience is your own perception. So it needs to be, I don't know, the experience needs to be organic somehow. Like it needs to, you need to put people in a situation where they have an experience which is not you telling them something, which is your ego clashing against theirs. So like even the slightest resistance to information is going to pollute the idea. So I think actually that art is one of the really important things that conveys information without ego. Like art transcends the ego. If you have something if you make a very powerful painting or movie or whatever it is, then it's not, the message is there. The message can be very clear and very deep, but it's not someone telling you personally. There's no ego involved. It's actually a personal experience that is separate from someone else. Does that make sense?